All right, let's move on to the main event here. If you guys want to check out the full episode, make sure you guys go to odds.com. It will be all there for you. But let's get into this main event between Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Ciryl Gane. We got a heavy chalk again on Ciryl Gane here at minus 265. Line seems to be coming down a little bit. And then we got plus 225 on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. A spot that jumps off to me right off the bat is the over 1.5 at minus 210. A little bit chalky at this point in time, but kind of gives me the same feel where we'll see these guys, go out there and try to, gauge each other for a little bit. Gane moves very well on the feet as well, too. Very good in and out movement. I think he could kind of dodge the early strikes from Jairzinho here and take it over that 7.5 minute mark. But then it depends on what happens for the rest of the fight, right? Now, I think that we could potentially see Gane go out there and attack this from a grappling sense, or, just strike for a bit and then eventually attack the grappling, where I think he should have the advantage. He has a couple of submission victories on his record. The only thing we haven't really seen is how he looks off of his back, just because nobody's really pushed him to go to that spot yet. Is Jairzinho Rozenstruik going to push him in that spot? I highly doubt it. Our Rozenstruik obviously has the striking advantage here in terms of technical. Not to mention he fought over there in Glory, I believe, a couple times too. Has a bunch of kickboxing experience on his record as well. So he should have gone beat there in the technical aspect. But in terms of the volume aspect, it leaves a lot to be desired, right? Gane is not like super high output, but does enough to go out there and just squeeze out these rounds, winning these, beating these guys by out pointing them, staying on the outside, jumping in and out, doing a good job in terms of rolling with shots too. JDS was able to hit him with a couple of good shots. Didn't really seem to phase Gane at all. Then again, I do believe that Rozenstruik is another level when it comes to power. We got like Francis Ngannou, we got Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and Derek Lewis. And I started this at the top of the show. I hope we see some normalcy here and Gane go out there and win a technical fight rather than that lower percentage knockout that I believe that we saw last weekend with Derek Lewis, and this weekend another potential Jairzinho having that knockout power once again. The angle that I'm looking at is Gane wrestling a little bit later in this fight, getting this fight to the ground, possibly pulling off a submission, which is plus 450. I like that line. I wish it was a little bit better. I think it opened around plus 600. Now it's gone down to plus 450, but I think it has a little bit of value there. If this was a 3-round fight, I'd be looking at Gane by decision, as he doesn't have an extra 10 minutes to worry about having to stay away from the big power of Jairzinho. But now that we got this fight at 5 rounds, it leaves me a little bit more skeptical if we'll see Gane, fight that point fighting style for 5 rounds, and if he can even get away with it for 25 minutes, right? That's the issue that I have here. So I'm leaning the Gane side. I think he wins this fight via submission, takes this to the ground, and pulls something off there. But man, that power of Rozenstruik is nothing to fuck around with. How are you seeing this fight, and how much stock are you putting into that knockout possibility for Jairzinho here?
Yeah, it seems like it's Derek Lewis, number 4, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This is power rankings. Number 3, Francis Ngannou, number 2.
Oh, who's number 1?
Nico Price, man. That guy just he flicks you with a backhand from his back, half one looking the other way without turning his hips, and these guys crumple. It's crazy. Yeah, some guys got a tremendous amount of power, and we see with these heavyweights. We saw it last week. Obviously, I was on Curtis Blades, minus 450 favorite. He's a big guy, but you have to realize it is a heavyweight fight. I mean, anything can happen. We always talk about in MMA, the punch could always land. Anybody can knock out anybody, but it's always going to be, just exponentially bigger at the heavyweight division. These guys are big guys. Some of them cut to 265 pounds. They're all large men. Rozenstruik hits you, you're in a lot of trouble. Rozenstruik doesn't throw a ton of volume. But here's the thing. If you're a heavyweight power puncher, you either throw 100 strikes like a Volkov, or you throw 10 or 15 like an Ngannou or Lewis.
Yeah.
You got that power. You don't have to go out there and throw a ton of combinations. You don't have to go there and throw a ton of output. And Gane is that guy. He's an output guy. I know that he does tire. You look at the Bozer fight, especially, it's 15 minutes. He does get slowed down a little bit in that fight. And you see him come to the UFC. He's got a lot of quick finishes. Debuts with the UFC. Again, you see more quick finishes. That he looks good in. The Dante Mays fight goes 3 rounds, but it's Dante Mays gets the heel hook. His fight against Pessoa. Again, is he fighting at the highest level? No, not necessarily. Draws Bozer. And then the Junior Dos Santos fights, this guy looks completely very good. Very fluid, very accurate, making those improvements. And that's what I like about him, is that there's these wave of these new heavyweights, right? We seen it last week with Daukaus and Tom Aspinall. It's they're sub 30-year-old guys who are starting to accrue some experience, have legitimate talent everywhere, and are coming and making that big splash. Ciryl's part of that. He's the TKO champion. You and I got to see him live before coming to the UFC, and it was like there's an aura around him. Like, oh damn, he's one of Francis Ngannou's training partners. This guy's the real deal. He's no longer one of Francis Ngannou's training partners, but going out there and having to spar with Francis, what better guy to prepare you against this guy? Where it's like touch, go, touch, go. You know what? When I touched, he countered after the first touch and I got hit. So now I'm just gonna touch, go. Like you change as a man, you make improvements, you make realizations. It's like, okay, that's all good stuff. I think that he will be good at playing, that distance game, that range game, that speed game early, right? Whether he does get caught later on in the fight, that's anybody's guess. Like you said, it feels better to bet him in a 3-round fight than a 5-round fight because there's not at least that extra 10 minutes. And as we've seen in the Overeem fight, it's like
every second counts.
Yeah, every second counts, because just like we would see against Derek Lewis, against Volkov or whoever, it's like it could be 1 second left on the clock. There could be 1 second in on the clock. It's like if they hit you, the power carries all the way through. Rozenstruik is going to be dangerous, but Gagne's just got to bag some rounds and try to be safe. But beyond that, we don't have to make a clear pick on the main event. We'll save that for tomorrow. But the props that I do like on this fight is I like some of these overs. So the over 1.5, don't love that one as much, but it's 210. The over 2.5 minus 115. The over 3.5 plus 135. Maybe I don't stretch it to 4.5 if fight goes the distance. But with Rozenstruik, you look at the Junior Dos Santos fight, right? And even though the first round by the numbers he outstruck Junior Dos Santos, I watched it or rewatched it a few times, and it's like that's a very close round. But I didn't see the scorecards, and I never saw what the judges' scorecards were because it's a second round finish. So I went up and I checked out the play-by-play. Most media outlets are scoring the round for Junior Dos Santos because of that first round just doesn't do a whole lot. And the second round he catches them, and it's all over. The Overeem fight, he's super low output. Mind you, he gets taken down here and there as well. But he's really low output, just waiting for the shot. And then late in the 5th round, lands it and turns around and walks away. Like, man, the judges got you losing this fight. They got him down 3-1 on the cards, and he lands that shot late. And I think that's just like a theme that I've seen from him in a lot of his fights is that, again, when you have that power, you don't throw a ton. When you don't throw a ton, you wait a little bit long. Well, is waiting too long going to get him in trouble here? I don't know. When Francis fought him, Francis is just like, I'm just going to bum rush him out the gate. Yeah. When Overeem fought him, Overeem was taking him down. He was making Overeem look like a bona fide wrestler, which it's just not, right?
Yeah.
I think it was the Junior Albini fight. He gets taken down twice. It's like his takedown defense leaves something to be desired. He's a 30-time kickboxing veteran. All his MMA fights, he likes to land that death touch. He likes to strike at range, but his takedown defense leaves something to be desired. Does he have Derek Lewis? Fuck it, I'm getting back up jiu-jitsu? Like, I don't know. Can Gane go out there and just take this guy down and hold him down? Yeah, very good possibility. And I think Gane's smart enough to realize if I just strike with this guy, I may get caught at some point. And I think he'll just strike in pockets long enough to just try to get him up against the cage and try to take him down. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to go like big play on Gane, or not even big play, but just like confidently bet Gane. But what I do like instead of trying to make a money line pick on this fight is bag some overs. I think the over 1.5, not a great price tag, but the over 2.5 and the over 3.5, I think that it plays out for both of them. If Gane wins this fight, he's just going to look to slow the thing down, right? I don't think he's knocking out Rozenstruik standing. If he does have success with the ground game, does he submit Rozenstruik? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure with that. He took 3 rounds to take out Dante Mays, so maybe not. He's not going to jump on a submission to give up position. Yeah. He'll just hold it down. As far as the striking goes, he's not a big power puncher guy. He's more of the stand to the outside, nice, accurate, crisp technique, but not huge on the power. Rozenstruik, meanwhile, we know the guy's dangerous at all times. But again, he's one of these guys that takes his time and sets it up and then hits you, then puts that kill shot on you. So I'm hoping that regardless of who wins, this fight probably makes it to round 3 or 4, and that's where shit gets real and somebody gets put away. So hopefully hit a couple of those overs in the meantime. But this is a fun main event. I think I'd be a lot more confident in Gane if I didn't just see Curtis Blades get flatlined. Yeah, and I could see it being like, this is classic heavyweights too. You could be like, dude, it was Derek Lewis, and it was like, dude, that punch would have knocked out everybody, and it would have. But it was like, it was a short little shot. That's MMA for you. It doesn't have to be that like long bomb that comes from 5 feet out from the hip. That's like, holy shit. Sometimes it's just like the one you don't see coming. It's a crazy sport. And with Gane, it's like he's dealing with straight up dynamite on his hands. But hit some overs. Hopefully he can take it in some deeper waters. And if he does take it in deeper waters and he's up on the scorecards, he could just evade and try to survive. Stuff that I'm sure he's done many times in the gym with one Francis Ngannou. So play that evasive game, outpoint him a little bit. If his cardio's on point, the improvements from the junior fight carry over. I thought he looked really good in that fight, to be honest. They carry over, keep getting better, keep making improvements. Same thing with Tom Aspinall, right? Tom Aspinall did not look all that good against Andrei Arlovski, really. He hurt him bad in the first round. He looked dynamite. And then around like the 3 or 4 minute mark, it's like, oh shit.
He was huffing a little bit.
I never been past 90 seconds in a pro MMA fight before. So he ends the round and says like, oh, dude, the guy looks half dejected. And the third round starts and Arlovski's throwing some combos. The second round starts and Arlovski's throwing some combos. And I'm like, oh, no, Tom. And like he just like falls onto a really good joke. So dope, badass, inside the distance prop hit. All that's all well and good. But it's like that was a really good moment for him because he had to go to the second round. And he had to do something. And now people will analyze Tom Aspinall's next fight and be like, dude, didn't look good against Arlovski. But it's like, he'll look better because he's got that experience. With Gane, dude got signed. He was TKO champion like 3 fights into his career, right? And so he's signed to the UFC. He fights Contender Series. He's signed to the UFC. He's like 5 fights into his career. Now he's fighting Junior Dos Santos. He's like in these big spots. He's now headlining a fight. He's still super green, man. But it's like you see why they're pushing him is like he's keeping with it. He's making improvements. He hasn't been out of his depth just yet. So is this the first time? Possible. Is this going to be an eye-opening experience? That's like, oh, guy's not as good as we thought he was. Could be, but like I call this guy honorary Canadian because we've got really nobody else. Nobody else is late.
You fight in TKO, you're Canadian.
Right. But this guy, he's from France, right? So he's French. So that we got the French connection for sure. He started out his career in TKO where he was the champion. I'm giving him a pass like that. If you're gonna tell me Nordine Taleb, who is Canadian, which he's not, he's from France, right? He's in the same boat. Canada's a great country. We have a ton of immigrants. They're Canadian. This guy, maybe he's not a Canadian citizen.
Yeah.
He's the only thing we got.
Yeah.
So I do like Gane. All jokes aside, he's just got to play a smart game plan and mix in those takedowns. But as far as props goes, we're gonna look to hit the over 1, 2, and 3.5.
Perfect. I do want to give a shout out to somebody in the chat, KJ. I don't think we gave enough recognition to Gane's kicking game as well, because I think that's going to be very important for him here to kind of just strike and land points while staying away from the big power of Rozenstruik, which is that kicking game, right? Just whether it's the teep, whether it's just a kick to the legs, that should keep him active enough to be winning points and continuing the low volume style of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And further to your point about Jairzinho versus JDS, if you look up the actual scorecards, they still release the scorecards, even if it finishes inside the distance. 2 of the judges did give that to Junior Dos Santos. And also the Overeem fight. If we had Chris Tione in there, he's letting it go the extra 4 seconds, right? We're cashing those Overeem tickets if Chris Tione's in there. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
Well, what I was going to say is if this is on the island in the big cage, it's like, kick game from range is going to be great. He's got a good kicks, good kick arsenal, stay to the outside, outpoint this guy, use speed. But in that small cage in the apex, as you've seen with Lewis versus Blaze, it's like, they ain't not a whole lot of space to go.
Especially
and
these
that's
big
just
boys.
that's a tricky prospect to think about if you're Ciryl Gane. It's like, I could stick and move, but can I stick and move in this tight space for 25 minutes? Flyweights might be able to, but heavyweights, like there's not a whole lot of space there. So it just makes it really it's a dangerous fight. The kicks, yes, underrated. I think Gane just uses those to stay at range. But also it's like, what's the best counter to the kick? It's like the punch, kick, land, like catch it straight down the middle, land the shot. Small cage, backing him up. Can he kick while backing up? Is he going to be able to counter with a kick? You're playing a dangerous game, but I think that beyond that, it's the takedown. Everyone's looking at this. You and I spent, I don't know, let's say we spent 15 minutes talking about this fight right now. We spent 20 or 12 of it talking about the prospect of striking. Gane's a good striker, and he might have the distance, and he might have some volume, and Rozenstruik is a great striker, and he's got the power, and he hits you, and you're done. But like the 3 minutes that we spent there, we're like, Gane might wrestle. I honestly think he will wrestle. I think that's probably going to be come Sunday. That'll be the biggest narrative. That'll be like, oh shit, you know what I mean? He did decide to wrestle. Good game plan. Rozenstruik needed to be short up in that. Overeem took him down rather easy, and when Overeem took him down, it was like, oh damn. Overeem's top game is just way too much for him. And then in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th down the stretch, Overeem's tired. Overeem doesn't really want to shoot the takedowns anymore. He gets off his pedal and stops shooting takedowns and just plays a range game and still has success into the 5th round where he gets his lip busted and gets finished. So Gane could play that game, but wrestle, man. That'd be the way to go. So, yeah. And if he does choose to do so, then we're good on the overs. And if he gets knocked out, then I guess this is another told you so moment. Why do I bet against these guys who have like the grace of God? You know,
Yeah.
if this is Greek, like, you know, mythical times, they'd be like, oh, he was dipped into the waters of Kayumbe, and when he can, his mother could only dip him in by his hands, so his hands had this like granted ability that if he touched you, he severed your consciousness from your head. It's like
Oh,
that's this guy, dude, straight out
pretty
of the
much.
waters of Kayumbe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not fucking with him, but I see where a lot of people would say he's a live dog. He's live in any situation.
For sure. Anybody with that type of power is definitely live. I'm not running to the betting window right now to lay minus 270 on Gon, but I do think he has him beat on a MMA technical standpoint, pretty much all around, including that volume. Now, the question does remain: what does this cardio look like if this fight does reach rounds 4 and 5? We got to leave that up to hypotheticals at this point, right? We've never seen it. He was scheduled 5 rounds for a couple times in TKO, but he just never made it that far. So yeah, if we go to the championship rounds here. All right.